Welcome back to Geography Year 7. So we are on lesson 4 of your ice on the land or your glaciation topic today, and we are going to be looking at how more of the features that glaciers create are made. So this is the first of 2 lessons talking about valley features. So these are the features that you would find not up in the mountains, but down in the valleys, in the lower land areas. So today we're going to be looking at a little recap of what we did last lesson about corries. Then we will look at a new feature called a U-shaped valley and compare that to a feature that we've already looked at in a previous topic. Okay, so the answers that you should have. Snow accumulates in north and east facing hollows on the mountainside. Snow is compacted into ice and moves downhill. Frost shattering and plucking create a steep back wall. Abrasion deepens the hollow and forms a rock basin. A rock lip is left where the rate of erosion decreased. The height of the lip is increased by the deposition of moraine. So this is a new word to you and something that we'll be looking at in the next few lessons. The rock lip and moraine act as a dam. A corrie lake or tarn fills the rock basin after the Ice Age. So that shouldn't have been too difficult for you. You might have needed to look back at your notes, but this is stuff that we covered last lesson. Something we didn't cover last lesson is what these corries can make. So corries are amazing in themselves. They look really impressive, especially if they've got a tarn in them, but they look even more impressive where you have groups of them together. So where you have 2 corries next to each other, so either side of a mountain, they create a really sharp ridge between them, as you can see in this top left picture here. You can see a really sharp kind of rocky line, and that is called an arête. Where you have 3 or more corries around the same mountain, it creates a really pointy top to that mountain, as you can see in this bottom picture here. Normally mountains have quite smooth sloping tops. This is a really pointy top, and this is called a pyramidal peak. These 2 bits of information are important for something you'll be doing at the end of the lesson. So as I said, today we're going to be focusing on a new feature called a U-shaped valley, and that's what we're going to be looking at, how it's made and how it's different to something that you have already come across. So this image on the left here is a lovely photo of 2 different types of valleys. They are exactly the same valley, but they have been, sorry, they're not exactly the same valley, but they look exactly the same with the exception of what is filling them up from the front, so what is in the foreground. So River Valley A, clues in the name there, this valley was made by a river, and so you've already come across these. You talked about how river valleys were made, how V-shaped valleys were made when we did our rivers topic. And you can see in this picture that it's called a V-shaped valley because it is just that. If you took a slice through the middle, it would look like a big V. And this is because the thing that's eroded it, the river, is not particularly big. It's not very wide, it's not very deep, and so the river can't erode particularly widely or deeply. And so it just cuts out that little channel in between the 2 sides of the valley, and that makes a V-shaped valley. On the right hand side though, you can see a very, very similar valley in terms of what's either side of it, but the actual shape of the valley itself is completely different. So in the last ice age, until about 11,000 years ago, this would have been filled with a glacier, one of those big rivers of ice, and the ice would have completely filled this valley, top to bottom almost. And because the thing that filled it, the glacier, is so huge, it would have been able to erode downwards really quickly, but also side to side really quickly. And so it scoops out this ginormous, wide and quite flat valley floor. And it cuts away anything that was already there because this glacier is so big and so powerful. But sometimes you are left with a little river stream in the bottom of it, like we can see in this picture here. So if you were to look at this valley and think, oh, I wonder what cut this out, what made this? You wouldn't think that it was that tiny river that you can see in the bottom because there's no way a river that size could have cut out a valley that big. There are two activities for you to do now then. So the first one is to have a go at drawing or sketching the three pictures that you can see in on the slide. They're not particularly complicated, they're just kind of basic ways of showing you how a V-shaped valley is made, so a river valley. So you need to copy out those three diagrams into your books or onto paper. And then you need to match up the right box of description from underneath it, please. Okay, so a little bit more information about U-shaped valleys. There is a separate link, YouTube link attached to show my homework. I know you can't copy and paste it from here because this is a video, but attached to show my homework, there is a separate video link which will take you to this video. It's only a minute and a half. I would like you to please watch this, and then once you've watched this separate video, come back to this lesson and to complete the next activity, please. Okay, so once you have recapped and done your diagrams about the V-shaped valleys, I would like you to do the same thing now for U-shaped valleys. So the video that you've just watched and the explanation in this video should help you to be able to do exactly the same as you've just done. So make copies of each of these three diagrams and underneath match up the correct box of explanation with each diagram. Okay, your final activity today then is a nice little summary of all of the features that we've looked at so far. So again, you are going to need to go to a separate link for this. There's also a third link attached to show my homework, which will take you to a website called WordWall. And this is where you get to play a fun little game of matching up features and the picture that you can see. So have a go at the activity, match up the features. The vast majority of these, you know what they are. The rest of them, you can have an educated guess at. I would like you to keep going and keep repeating this activity until you get them all right. It shouldn't take you long at all. Okay, last thing for this lesson then, please, Year 7, is we would like you to submit your work from last lesson. That is your Corrie's storyboard. We want the full storyboard. It doesn't matter if it's not coloured. If it is coloured, then it's a benefit, but it doesn't really matter if it isn't coloured. Please either take a photo of it if you did it by hand or submit it electronically to show my homework for this lesson. And I will see you next week.